Hey guys, welcome back. Hi, I'm Marcy. I'm the creator of Voice and Vision, and I made this channel just to talk about stuff that we all deal with. And so today I'm going to address why perfectionism is just exhausting. It's exhausting. So, I think that a lot of us who are very particular type A's, we deal with this idea of perfectionism, and it just undermines us. It undermines us going, it's not good enough, it's not good enough. And I think that talking about how to overcome some of that is going to help us all just be more efficient and more real and transparent. And I think that perfectionism gets in the way of our authentic selves. I mean, even this video, as I stumble through some of my thoughts, I think to myself, gosh, I should go back and fix that. But you know what? I'm not going to today. Just going to talk, and we're going to talk about all that, all of those behaviors that lead us to the perfectionistic style. So, why is it so exhausting? Well, I think it's because it becomes kind of our super ego on steroids. And if you don't know what a super ego is, it's basically that parent, the parent that lives inside your brain, the one that tells you you should, you could, you should have done this, you need to do. And I think that gets really loud in some of us some days, especially when we care a lot about something. Unfortunately, that super ego can lead to some negative self-talk, which kind of creates this idea of I'm not good enough unless it's perfect, or if I fail, it's just the worst thing ever. And I think that leads to increased disappointment for ourselves and even for others, the people we love. Like, we hold them to this crazy standard sometimes because of that voice that's just in us. So I think that being aware of it is going to be helpful to being merciful and kind to ourselves and our loved ones. I think that it also leads to analysis paralysis, right? So because the solution isn't perfect, I don't do anything. And that stops us from living. It stops us from growing. It stops us from doing the things that we think are a little too hard or a little challenging. So I think that perfectionism leads to inaction more than action, right? Being a performer, I was a performer for 20 years plus at this point. I'm probably going on 30 now. Um, I've realized and understand that performance is never perfect. The real fact is that you're always going to have little mistakes as you're going through a performance type of anything, which is daily life, right? We all practice to perform our daily duties. We all practice to perform at work. We all practice to perform in theater, at school, wherever it is, right? And there's this expectation that we practice and have the best performance we can. But the truth is that excellence is good. Excellence is good enough, and it doesn't have to be perfect, right? So if we want it to be extraordinary, sometimes in a performance, the extraordinary comes from being authentic, from making it real, for taking those little things that don't go perfectly and turning them into something that works, something that's authentic for us. So, relatable story for that would be when I was a performer. I used to become so tense with wanting it to be perfect that I actually got to a point where I couldn't really perform well at all. And finally, I got to a place in my life where I said, you know what? I am lucky enough to get a chance to sing this right now for these people. And I get one shot to make them feel it. And that was truly the freedom. It wasn't about being perfect. It wasn't about meeting everyone in that room's expectations. It was about being real and sharing something that can never be repeated. It's a once in a lifetime every time you perform. And so that moment, that way of sharing with another is really powerful, just because the performer themselves, or the person who is sharing that talent in that moment, understands that they're going to do the best they can, give an excellent performance of whatever task that is, and with all of the heart behind it. And that is what makes it real. That's what makes it feel excellent. So So, three things that I do instead of worrying over that perfectionism. I mean, moving on from the performer analogy, there's some things that help me in my daily life move away from being stuck on it has to be perfect, right? So, here they are. So, the first one is thinking through to a worst case scenario to ignite your problem solving brain, right? So, if I'm worried about it not going well, I'm going to try to anticipate ways that I might have an issue and either circumvent it by practicing better or preparing better, or I'm just going to kind of think through like if this happens, how can I recover in that moment? Sometimes there are things in life where it's hard to recover from something like that, but you've all seen it happen. That CEO that flubs a line and then just laughs it off or makes a joke, or that's one of the gifts performers often have, is that we can move around something that was human, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it actually helps the audience feel more connected to that person. Um, so invoking that problem solving, it helps keep the angst at bay, and it also helps you perform, with your best face forward. If you've already kind of thought about problems that could happen and figured out how do I move around that, right? So the next one is imagining more than just a plan A, right? There's not only one plan. Like this could go a million different directions at any moment. And so having the ability to not be stuck to only one plan, and that is the only plan that is good enough, or will work, or it has to be just so. As much as that's admirable to have a very focused vision, it's also important to know that you might need a plan B. Heck, you might need a plan C. Heck, you might even need a plan triple Z. But if you can work yourself to a place where those are acceptable scenarios, then you're going to have an easier time with that perfectionistic idea, because you have options, right? And choices are always good. Finally, looking at yourself through a different lens. Like that means to me making sure that I look at myself with the same mercy I might look at another performer, maybe even a young performer. There's something about that that's really loving. And again, having an authentic view of self and your own humanity is really helpful for these perfectionistic, performance-driven ideals that we seem to really just weigh ourselves down with, right? And managing our self-talk is kind of the at least statement, right? Like, well, this didn't go the way I wanted it to in this moment, but at least I was able to rescue it by doing fill in the blank, right? And there's like this at least statement that keeps you from just beating yourself down. Every time you do that, your brain learns that it's not competent, right? When you tell yourself you're not good enough, that's not true. Like you just got through something that was maybe hard and maybe it didn't go perfectly, but you got through it. And that by itself is a big deal. And we need to practice our own competence in our own mind. So telling yourself positive things about what happened versus the negative is going to help you in the long run, right? So I hope this was helpful. Thanks for joining me. Again, I'm Marcy. Please like and subscribe. I'd love to see you again here on Voice and Vision.